Welcome in to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. A podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. It's time to flock up. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, your official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. Since we last chatted with you, well, it was a Friday, TGI Jim, I think is the way we like to say it, huh? Mr. Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com?
Sounds great.
I like that. They also took on the Golden State Warriors. 112-108, the final. Golden State, the top team in the Western Conference, going into weekend's play, going into that night's play. They do get the win. Jim, just overall before we hear from head coach Willie Green and some of the particulars in that game, if you'd have told me it'd have been a 4-point game with Golden State winning on a Friday with the undermanned team that the Pels have, I'd have taken it.
Yeah, it was definitely a good effort by the Pelicans. I thought from pretty much start to finish, they were in the game. There was a few times where I was a little worried that Golden State was going to take control when they got up, say, 8-10 points, but the Pelicans were able to continually reel them back in. And then obviously you have a chance to win the game with a 3-point shot by Trey Murphy, but it didn't go in. I mean, it was another example to me of, the feeling of a victory there would have been just immense. It would have been so huge to be able to get a victory. Unfortunately, we're going to have to settle for a moral victory in that. But, compared to the previous two games, talk about a difference in terms of the performance of the Pelicans coming off those losses against Dallas and then Cleveland, where they were as shorthanded as any team in the
Down
NBA
41.
maybe ever has been.
Yeah.
So to come back from that was good. Obviously, in the position that the Pelicans are in now, where they're 4-13, a win would have been so monumental, but they didn't get it.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's head coach Willie Green.
The guys, I told them in the locker room that our game plan, discipline, and execution was at a high level tonight. And that's progress for us. Now, we still came up short a few plays down the stretch. To your point, Graf, knock some free throws down. Maybe the ball bounces our way. That last, 3 that we tried to get off. So there's some things that, we can clean up coming down the stretch, but, they battled their tails off. We're proud of them. Unfortunately, in the NBA, there's just no moral victories. Still a tough loss on our home floor.
Look, I get it. Fans are enough of it, but it is though, right? Look, because all you can do when you are, Jim, as we are this Monday, Thanksgiving week, dead last in the Western Conference standings.
I was hoping you weren't going to bring that up, but it is reality. Yeah.
The absolute bottom. There is nobody below you. Point being is you don't get those kind of efforts, performances, guys wanting to come back, which they are coming back this week. And we'll get into that here in a quick second. But look, Trey Murphy's 3 goes in, you win the game. You win the game.
Right. Yeah, the Brooklyn game was an example, too, where it could have gone either way. The Laker game was also that. To me, there's been very few games lately where I have a problem with, how hard they played, but a lot of the execution problems and the talent is something that's really difficult to overcome. One good step forward from the Golden State game was they only committed 10 turnovers in that game, so that was big. But having Elfrid Payton at point guard, that makes a massive difference. That was
the difference, yeah.
The second game that he started, and the first game I think he was still trying to figure a few things out. He had a couple turnovers at the beginning of the game as he kind of got back on the floor for the first time in 2 years in terms of an official NBA game. But
well, let me stop you there because this is exactly what head coach Willie Green had to say about that.
Well, we've been trying to do it by committee, but getting Elfrid on the floor, he's more of a true point guard. So now there's a common force that knows how to get us into sets. He can get the ball to B.I., Brandon Boston, Trey Murphy. It takes more pressure off those guys. They got more energy to go out and score. And he's also a really good floor general. He can defend at a high level, rebound. So he does a lot to help a team win games.
The turnover thing has been kind of a two-sided thing. Under the circumstances with as many players as the Pelicans have out right now, you need to get your turnovers down so that you get as many shots as you possibly can. There's been a lot of games where they've shot a poor percentage. So you shoot low 40s from the field and you're turning the ball over so that 40% is coming out of fewer shots. That's how you end up scoring 95 points or 88 points, what they had in a couple of those games. So that's huge, but also just the defensive end that you're not, energizing the other team's fast break offense by turning the ball over, and that's leading to them running out. So, yeah, I mean, just you see the difference in just a lot of the basic execution stuff of how much that matters. It's very glaring and easy to see when you go from what the Pelicans were trying to do at point guard that Willie Green mentioned and just having Elfrid out there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mentioned, again, this was a game that could have been one of those, wow, you won those games that maybe you shouldn't have. Trey Murphy, left wing three, little short. Trey on the missed three at the buzzer.
Felt great. Biggest thing is it's hard to live with that when you're short, like when you miss short, especially for a shooter. Like if I would miss it long, obviously I don't want to miss it at all, especially playing against them and in a cup game as well. But, missing it short really hurts a lot. So, it is what it is. On to the next one.
It was even miraculous you had a shot. You steal the inbound. Trey to B.I. in the corner. Could he have shot it, Jim? Could he have shot it there? He gives it to Trey. You live with either or.
He could have, and he also, I noticed on NBA TV, they talked about how he could have driven baseline and maybe had a layup or a dunk. I didn't even think about that in real time because it was one of those things where it was like you weren't expecting to have the ball, and now you have a chance to win the game. So I think a lot of us were thinking shoot the three, not try to get a two and go to overtime against Golden State. But either way, I mean, yeah, that was such a wild situation. Golden State didn't have any timeouts left, so when they were inbounding, they had to just throw it in and hope for the best. They couldn't just hold the ball because it would have been a 5-second violation. But, yeah. I mean, it almost turned into even better for the Pelicans, the fact that they had to throw it in because the Pelicans had a situation where Golden State wasn't back on defense, and they just had to scramble, and the Pelicans end up with a quality shot by Trey, but like he said, he just came up a little bit short on it.
Coach, on that last furious second?
Any of those guys that, that's on the floor and you got an open look like that, that's the opportunity to take it. And I thought it was good. Kind of went rattled in and out. We tried to get the tip in, but that's what you want. Try to put yourself in a position to win those games down the stretch.
On that tip in, JRE, perhaps with an opportunity to do that. Look, man, before we put a bow on that game and move on here to this week, the opportunity he's been taking, you have to be happy for the guy. 19 points in 23 minutes, 12 rebounds, Jim. That's another double-double for JRE. An assist, 2 steals, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, 7 of 11 from the floor. He took 3 threes. He knocked down 1, man. This is what he had to say, and I want to hear what you have to say on his opportunity that he's taking right now.
Yeah, just trust the work that I put in, and the coaches, the players, we do a great job putting each other in positions to be successful. So, it's a stay ready mentality, and just like I said, I love playing basketball and being able to be out there with my friends and homeboys, being able to hoop. It's a lot of fun.
I think one of the biggest testaments to how well he's played lately and how much of a contributor he's been is that it wasn't shocking that he had 19 and 12. It might have been a little surprising that a guy like that at this stage of his career would put up those kind of numbers. But, I mean, he's been such a consistent offensive rebounder lately. He's been a hustle guy. He seems like he is willing to dive in there. If there's 3 people that have on the other team that have a chance for the ball, he's like, I still think I can get this. So, yeah, I mean, and his shot has improved so much. He just looks so much more confident and steady when he loads up his 3-point shot. So, really good work by JRE. I mean, he's been definitely over the last, say, 2 weeks, been one of the biggest positives.
I'm looking at the recent games, and obviously when players start to come back health-wise, I don't know how it affects his minutes or not, but whatever time he gets on the court, I'm just looking. He hasn't had many double-doubles, but they're right on the cusp, right? Cleveland, 9.7 rebounds. A couple more boards, 1 more point to double-double. 11.7 rebounds against Dallas. 10 points, 9 rebounds against the Lakers, 6 and 8 against Denver. But basically what I'm saying is he's within a bucket or 2 and a board or 2 that goes off his hands, or he maybe can't corral it from double-doubles, man.
And if you factor in how many minutes he plays, it's not like he's playing 35, 38 minutes. If you factor that in, the fact that he's coming close to double-doubles so consistently is another good, just illustration of the guy's been playing really well lately.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, look, last week the Pels had a couple of games for the NBA Cup. They didn't get any of them, Dallas and Golden State. So where are we when it comes to the NBA Cup?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Do I have to say? I'm sorry. The Emirates.
Either
NBA.
way,
Do I have to say that?
I don't know if are they cutting you a check if Emirates.
They don't
then,
cut me a check. It's kind of like when you do press conferences and you have the whatever liquid,
the Gatorade or
choice.
whatever.
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
Can you even say that, right? It's either Powerade, Gatorade, Dasani, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Unfortunately, the game this Friday against Memphis isn't going to matter in the NBA Cup because the Pelicans have been eliminated.
We're done.
Yeah, I think they're.
So we're not going to Vegas.
No, we are not going. We're going to have to put our plans on hold until 2025.
Make a few calls then.
Yeah. But yeah, they think the Pelicans were the first team to be eliminated in the league, and not necessarily because they've been terrible, but just because for whatever reason their group has played. They're further along the process of group play, of pool play than other groups are. So there's a bunch of teams that haven't won a game yet in NBA Cup, but somehow with the math, the Pelicans were the first team to be eliminated from that. So the game against Memphis will just be for pride, and actually it'll just be what it has always been throughout the history of the league, which is a game that counts in the standings.
Another game that counts.
Right.
That's right. Have we updated those schedules? Do we know those games yet, or we'll figure it out at some point this week? The games in December, right? I mean,
those
right,
games.
That week.
Yeah.
There's that empty schedule week.
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think that we're going to know that until December 4th at the earliest, because December 3rd is the last day.
You still have those games that can get in.
Yeah, December 3rd is the end of the group stage, so we won't. The NBA is not going to know which 8 teams are going to be in the quarterfinals, and more specifically for the Pelicans, which 4 teams in the West will be still alive. So after those 4 teams get in, you'll take the other 11 teams in the West, and they'll divvy up the schedule. But yeah, I don't think we're going to know that for another week.
And that's why I asked you.
Yeah, no.
You can explain it. No, because I mean, it's true. Somebody might look at the schedule and I'd be like, "Oh, you have a week off." My wife was like that. She's like, "Do you want to go on a trip?" I don't have the week off. I like the week off. We don't have the week off. We're going to play, I think, 2 games that week.
It's going to be 2 games, and it's going to be. I'm trying to remember.
One home, one away.
One home, one away.
Yes,
and it's one game will be Thursday or Friday, and then another game will be Sunday or Monday the following week. So it's going to be we know within a good range of when the games are going to be, but we just don't have any of the details, and we won't until December 4th, I believe.
No doubt, man. You got a chance over the weekend. The last time the team got a chance to practice before tonight's game against the Pacers. You had a chance to chat with Antonio Reeves. You and I got to see him at Summer League. We were super impressed with him. There's a lot of potential with what I think he can become on this team here. And, of course, because of injuries, had to kind of get thrown in here as of late and dropped a 34-point game.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of why I wanted to speak with him, was just the game that he had against Cleveland was such an eye-opener. He, for whatever reason, in preseason, in the early part of the regular season, when he sporadically got minutes, he wasn't really making shots. But then he seemed to put it all together in that Wednesday game, where he was making mid-range shots, he was making threes, he was, getting into the paint a little bit. He made some floaters. So that was impressive. So, but one of the things I wanted to talk to him about too and ask him was, he actually played 5 years in college. He played 3 seasons at Illinois State, and then he transferred to Kentucky. So the previous 2 years, he played for Kentucky in the SEC, and then obviously this year he's a rookie in the NBA. But I thought it was interesting. This is definitely something that he hasn't really paid much attention to, and it's probably from his standpoint there's really no reason to. But just wanted to ask him about the fact that at this point in the NBA draft process, a lot of teams or a lot of analysts are saying, like, if you've played 3-4 years in college, it's a negative compared to what it used to be. Everybody wants the 19-year-old guy that played 1 year who's a one and done, or the 20-year-old. There's this mentality that you've maxed out if you played 4 or 5 years in college, that you can't improve from that standpoint, especially if you're, say, 24, 25, the way that Dalton Connect is as well. But I thought that was interesting, though. I mean, he showed there's really not that many guys that can come in the NBA in any situation as a rookie and score 30+ in a game. So that was really good work for him. But this is my conversation, like you said, after Saturday's practice with Antonio Reeves.
It's incredible. All it takes is a 34-point game to sit down with Jim.
Welcome back to the Pelicans Podcast. I'm here with Antonio Reeves. Antonio, I wanted to start out with talking about your 34-point game against Cleveland. I mean, what did you appreciate maybe the most about that game? Was it just the kind of shots that you made, like the game slowing down for you? just the versatility of your game. It seemed like you scored in a lot of different ways. What did you take away the most from that game?
What I took away the most was the level of pace that you have to have in the NBA. It could be fast-paced, but you just got to slow yourself down, and, I figured that out, as game after game and things like that. And, I appreciate the most. It was really my birthday, too.
Yeah.
It was a day that I was born, so, appreciative that I can go out and perform the way I did. But for the most part, it was the pace of the game.
I know you're from Chicago, which isn't too far away from Cleveland. Did you have any family or friends at that game for you?
Nope, nobody. Actually, it was 2 people that came that I knew from Chicago, and they came to support me. But they're not technically, from Cleveland. But, they came and supported, and, it was my birthday, so they definitely showed up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What was their reaction to you after the game, after you played the way that you did? They probably said, we need to come to all of your games from now on, right?
Oh, no, they didn't say that. No, not at all. They just came support, and I ain't see this friend in a while, so, he just decided to just come to the game. He asked me, before the game, like, hey, trying to come to your game. I was like, cool. So, yeah. What do you think it's going to be like for you to play in United Center and be there as somebody from Chicago? Is that going to be kind of surreal? It is. It's definitely going to be surreal. I'll be having my times out there that, see certain players and things like that. I'd be like, whoa, I've been watching him for a very long time. And playing in United Center is definitely going to be surreal for me just because ever since I was a little kid, going to games and things like that, seeing Derrick Rose play on that floor. And it's just going to be something that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. You mentioned that you got to go to games. I mean, did you get to go often? Did you have, good seats at the games? What was it like for you were you a big Bulls fan growing up?
I definitely was. I used to watch all the Bulls games when Joakim, D-Rose, all of them, Carlos played. And I used to be just sitting in front of the TV, and it used to be so entertaining. Mm-hmm. And just seeing that, as a child growing up, and just being able to be here right now is definitely a blessing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they had some really good teams
during
that era, too. I mean, they're competing for, the best record in the East, in the Eastern Conference Finals. I remember they played the Heat one year with that, dream team that they had. So, yeah, they were really good. They were really competitive.
Yeah, they were.
I know it's super early in your career. It's only been, 2 months, basically, that you've been in the league. But what's road life been for you as far as adjusting to that, getting enough sleep, traveling from city to city? I know it's a huge – you guys travel in college, obviously, but it's not nearly the same level as this.
Yeah, I be having my time. Sometimes, we travel a lot, and I be on a plane, when are we going to get off the plane sometimes. But, it's definitely an adjustment that just getting used to because every other day we travel, and it'd be hours and hours that we'd be on a plane, and we have a game that we have right back on the plane, and I'd be like, oh, Lord. But, it's something to enjoy and, definitely a good experience.
What do you think is some of the biggest differences for you between, your 17 games as a team into the regular season for you between the way you are now and the way maybe at the beginning of preseason?
I just say slow down, mind slowing down. It's a lot of things that, as rookies go through that sometimes, it's be a lot on your mind and plays you have to, know and sleep and road and things like that, a family. And, after this, as the season go on, you just get to settle down and, you just get to play your game at that point because, it's so fast-paced at the beginning. But, as the season go on, it definitely gets better.
There's been a lot of discussion lately in the NBA about guys that played 4 or 5 years in college, and I think some of this was because Dalton Knecht had a 37-point game, and coincidentally the next night you had 34 points. So I think that's part of it is do you have any thoughts on just the whole thing of, it seems like as time has gone on, going into the draft, a lot of people are downgrading or being more dismissive of guys that have played as many years in college as you guys did. I mean, was that something that you heard or something that you thought about at all?
Definitely heard about it a lot. The older guys, already have a set game already going into the league, but I really don't pay attention to that stuff. I know I can play basketball, and I know, God put me in this position to play at this, high level. So I don't really too much concern about that stuff when people tell me about that and I heard about it, but it don't really concern me as much.
How much, when you look back at your college career and like how much time you spent in college and how successful you were over time and how much better you got, how much do you think that benefited you to put in all of that work and that production compared to, like if you just had 1 year in college?
Just the experience, just to keep working, your maturity level, you grow maturity-wise, and that actually helps as well, knowing things to do, knowing things to not do. And it definitely helps because, you get to already know how to play the game. It'd be sometimes when you have a year of college and you just jump right in the league, you have to learn so many things like defensive schemes and offensive schemes and things like that. But as you progress in college, you definitely know how to move, on the court.
If someone had come to you after your first or second year in college and said, was it the kind of thing where it was like you weren't ready?
Yeah, definitely, I would say I'm ready, but really, probably I'm not ready. Mm-hmm. It would probably be one of those things, to be honest.
Right.
So I say that, just, of course, having a dream to play in the league and things like that, but, me physically wise, mentally wise, maybe not.
Yeah. Wanted to ask you a few questions before we go about some of the stuff with your teammates. You said on a social media video the other day that when they asked you, like, which player you'd like to sit next to on the plane the most, you said Herb.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it was because you like him, like, breaking down everything about the league and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Herb kind of gives off the notion a lot of times that he doesn't pay much attention to, like, stuff around the league and stuff like that, so I thought that was interesting. But is he, when you say that, what exactly do you mean? Like, in terms of, is he just somebody that just is really knowledgeable about stuff around the NBA that he kind of tells you about?
Yeah, of course. He's been in the league for, I don't know, like maybe like 3-4 years now.
4 years, yeah.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So, of course, he might not seem like he paid attention, but he been through it and things like that. So that's what I really meant by it. Like, he been through a whole 4 seasons and know, different things that could help a rookie because he been a rookie before. So we talk about things like rookie-wise, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, things like that. So, it was more so like just him just looking out for me more than anything. So, yeah.
At this stage of your career, do you find yourself leaning on veteran teammates more for stuff like on the court or off the court, as far as just advice that you might need or stuff that they tell you?
Yeah, of course. I go to CJ, all the older guys, I tell them, even Woe sometimes. Just asking them things, of course. I play a couple games and I ask them, what things I need to improve on the floor. And, they tell me. So, I cover those guys all the time and try to see, what I can improve on. Because, a rookie, we just coming into these type of things, you just got to, lean on your vest sometimes.
Sure.
And it definitely helps.
What do you think's been the most surprising thing to you about the NBA as a rookie?
Surprising thing? I'll say the time that we have, off the court. I'm not in school anymore. I've been in school for 5 years, so it's definitely an adjustment when you usually have to wake up and go to class every day. But now, this is your job. This is what you do. So I'll say definitely the time that you just have to, build hobbies and build things that, can help you be productive throughout the day.
It's funny, you reminded me of, we had a player, Quincy Pondexter, who was here maybe like 10 years ago or so, and he talked about how like he was so used to being so much more busy with this college schedule being more structured.
Yeah.
And he was kind of half jokingly saying like that he wanted to get a part-time job, but the team said no, you can't just take a part-time job.
Yeah.
You can't do that because of the schedule. But have you had people always talk about this, have you had like a welcome to the NBA moment? Have you had a moment where it's been kind of surreal that you looked around and just been like, man, I'm in the league now?
Probably when we played against the Lakers and Golden State, seeing LeBron and seeing Curry, things like that, and seeing Anthony Davis, I'm like, it's really them right there. Like, I've been watching them all my life ever since I was a child. So, I had a surreal moment even yesterday when I seen Curry, by the bench. He was in the corner. I'm like, man, that's Curry right there. And I got in the game and I guarded him. I'm like, I'm guarding Curry. So it'd be things like that, man. It's so real. It's so unreal, like, at the moment. And I'm just here right now, and I'm blessed for the opportunity,
For sure.
honestly, yeah.
For sure. Last couple things. How did you pick your uniform number?
I was in high school when I first wore number 12, and I changed from 3 to 12 all the time, throughout high school. But I kept 12 when I was in college. I just kept the number. And, so to say, my granddad had the same number when he was playing. So it was kind of like crazy when I noticed that as well. So I definitely decided to keep the number, throughout my college, high school, college, and now I just decided to keep it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know we're not that far into your first season, so you haven't been all around the league yet, but is there a favorite arena that you've played in so far, a favorite place on the road that was cool or that was memorable for you?
Let me think. I think every arena is really cool. Yeah. I'm not going to lie, because it's an NBA arena.
For sure.
Just seeing the different logos out on the floor and things like that, I'm like, man, I'm really in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And, I just, every time we go on a road trip and be on them floors, it just like, it's pretty cool, honestly, that I get to, have this opportunity, yeah.
Last thing, we've had a bunch of Kentucky players here over the years, and we understand how crazy that fan base is.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Have you had any experiences so far on your road trips where you've seen Kentucky people in the crowd or seen people that have been there, to watch you play? Or I know you're probably looking forward to the game against Indiana on Monday, where I know they always have a lot of Kentucky fans in Indianapolis. So, what's that been like so far?
It's been a couple fans that came to a couple games that, watched me play and walked up to me and like, I'm really a big Kentucky fan. I'm glad you, here, in the NBA, things like that. So I would say, it's a support system that, never ends, honestly. Mm-hmm. And, after game, things like social media and things, they reach out to me like, be in for life or, a good game, things like that I always see. So, it's definitely there for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you taking the time.
For sure.
Good job, man. Our thanks to Antonio Reeves for giving you a little bit of time, or as you like to say, he earned it.
That's right. That's right. You get 34 points, you get on the Pelicans podcast.
That's it.
It's that simple.
It is. Answer my questions.
Well, it's a Monday. Thankfully, Jim is always our Friday. It's time for Mr. Eichenhofer to give his players of the week and a player to watch for this week. What you got, big guy?
Well, for player of the week, I'm going to go with Trey Murphy. And one of the things that was interesting about week 5 of the schedule for the Pelicans, that was really a negative, really, is that only 5 guys played in all 3 games. So that was one note. And, obviously the Pelicans didn't win the games against Dallas, Cleveland, or Golden State. But in the 2 games that Trey Murphy did play, he averaged 21.5 points per game, which led the team. And his shooting splits were 47, 44, and 89. So pretty close to that 50-40-90 level that we know that he's capable of, and is kind of, I don't know if this is a goal for him, but it's definitely something that people have in mind for, just how efficient of a player he can be. So I thought that was a really good sign, the fact that he, obviously missed the beginning chunk of the season, and it seems like he's getting closer and closer to rounding into form, and hopefully he'll time that with a bunch of other players coming back in the lineup. Speaking of which, the player to watch for week 6 of the schedule, Pelicans are playing against Indiana, Toronto, and Memphis over the next 5 days. Player to watch is going to be CJ McCollum, and he was listed as questionable as of this morning on the injury report, and then they just upgraded him to probable, so hopefully that means that he'll be back in the lineup. Couple interesting stats for him. If you go back to the beginning of last season, the Pelicans are 44-26 when CJ plays. They're 9-20 when he doesn't play. So you see that there's a drastic difference between those two numbers. And if you take those numbers over 82 game pace, the Pelicans have been a 52-win team when CJ plays since the start of last season. They've been the reverse of that. They've been a 25-win team when he's not on the floor. So, just a drastic difference.
Yeah.
That's why he's one of the reasons why he's the player to watch. Another interesting stat about CJ specifically, there's only 5 players on the Pelicans that have made more total 3-pointers than he has this season, and he's only played in 4 games. So, think about that. He's made 13 3-pointers, which is tied for 6th most among all New Orleans players, even though, he hasn't been on the court since the end of October. So CJ McCollum, player to watch. I mean, Indiana, Toronto, Memphis, they have some injuries, but, they also have some guards that are going to be tough to stop. Tyrese Halliburton, Emmanuel Quickley, Desmond Bane for the Grizzlies. So a bunch of tough matchups for CJ, and I'm curious to see how he does. And hopefully this is the start of a series of key Pelicans players getting back into the lineup.
There it is. Mr. Jim Eichenhofer, looking forward to it. Before we bid adieu to this one, do have a game against the Pacers this week. Come home, take on the Raptors. And then it's a little road trip to open up the month of December. They will be in the Big Apple and all that other stuff. We'll get into that maybe on Wednesday's podcast. But tonight, the Pacers, saw them a little bit ago, beat them a little bit ago. What do you think about this game tonight?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from looking back at that game that stood out to me for the Pelicans was that they only had 8 turnovers in that game. That was the only time all season that the Pelicans have had single-digit turnovers. They really took care of the ball really well. Jose Alvarado started that game before he was injured, so that definitely helped in terms of, he had 7 assists, no turnovers. Obviously, he's not going to play tonight, so that's a factor as well. But I'm really interested to see, one of the stats I looked at this morning too that really stands out to me about the Pelicans and the Pacers. When the Pacers have the ball, last season the Pacers were 2nd in offensive efficiency. Pelicans were 6th in defense. So, you're talking that was an elite battle between these two teams. This year, the Indiana's all the way down to 16th in offense, and the Pelicans are 29th in defense. So, to me, you could talk about a million different things, but just that right there explains a lot in terms of why, the Pacers were kind of the talk of the league last year, but in terms of their offense was great. They were pushing the ball. They were running. They were scoring 130 points all the time. Mm-hmm. But this year they're like slightly below average on offense. And then the Pelicans defense taking a massive drop off. Obviously, a ton of that is because of the players that they haven't had on the court. But just a couple interesting things. Getting DeJounte Murray and Herb Jones hopefully back, both of those guys back soon. I'm sure the Pelicans won't be 29th in defense for very long.
Hopefully not. That is for sure. Well, thank you, Jim. We'll see you again here in a little bit as the Pels take on the Pacers tonight. Jim will be a part of our pregame show, Pelicans warm-up. Don't forget, that is a 5:30 Pelicans warm-up. It's a 6 o'clock tip there on East Coast time up there in Indianapolis. Thanks as always for tuning us in. We'll see you on Wednesday on the next edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, the iHeartRadio app, or where you get your podcasts. And be sure to give Jim and Gus a follow on X at Jim_Eichenhofer and GCat_17. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.